Hello and welcome to Byju's IAS. Let's get started and look into the first article. The first article says Smart Walls for Indian Borders. This article here is very important from your GS paper 3, which is an aspect of security. What is this article speaking about? It is speaking about border management. Border management happens to be one of the important security function. What is the aim of the border management? Basically, this will secure our frontiers. It will safeguard our country from all the external threats emanating from the state as well as the non-state actors. Now let's try and understand what is the importance of border management when it comes to the general parlance and eventually understand how it is important from the perspective of India. First up, how is it important in general perspective? This is universally applicable to every single country. What we have in the world is currently illegal migration. Then there are travelers who also enter the country and they may also not leave that particular country. So what we have is illegal migration and travelers entering a particular country without the permission of that particular country, violating some of the migration laws. So the general importance of the border management is to ensure that illegal migration does not happen in that particular border area. This is what is happening in India with respect to West Bengal or in the northeastern states as well. Why? Because there is illegal migration, that which is coming up from Bangladesh, who are entering into India without any border documents, violating the migrating laws of India, which means that they are illegal migrants. So the border management becomes important. One is to stop the illegal migration, that which is happening in every country. This is not only with respect to India. We can also take the example of United States of America as well, along Mexico, or you can also look at Europe as well, where you have people from Africa who are entering the fold of Europe as well. And ultimately, this will bring large scale changes. What are these changes? It can be cultural in nature, it can be political in nature, and it can also be economical in nature. In case people from Africa who are not acclimatized to the culture of Europe, they enter into Europe, there'll be friction between the European population and the African population. How will it impact the political circles? Once these people enter into an area, eventually over a period of time, there'll be demographic changes that are introduced, and as a result, political mandate may also change as well. And when it comes to the economics, let's say for example, if there are certain illegal migrants who are coming from a country A and entering a country B, they may also snatch away the work of a local person. So it means it may bring a massive devastation on the economic front, on the political front, and also on the cultural front. So border management to prevent the illegal migration is very important from the security perspective. Then we have to look into the second concern, that is with respect to the drug trafficking. What exactly happens? Let's say for example, with respect to India, one, we have the western borders, then we also have the eastern borders as well. When you look into the position of India on the western borders, what we have is the Golden Crescent. What is this Golden Crescent? This is where large producers of heroin are present. Where are those? Afghanistan, Pakistan and Iran. So what is happening? There is massive amount of these heroin, or in fact drugs, that is pushed across the border areas. And at the same time, on the eastern front, we have also what is called as the Golden Triangle. So what is this Golden Triangle? It is a region between the border areas of Myanmar, Laos and Thailand as well. So India is pushed with drug on the western side and on the eastern side, which means there is increasing cases of drug trafficking with respect to India. And how do we prevent it? What we require is the border management. If the security forces are not ready, if the security forces are not able to make sure they can prevent it, it will be an economic loss, it will be a social harm to India. So the second major problem is that drug trafficking can be a major menace to a particular country. The same is happening along the Mexico borders between United States of America and Mexico, says some of the other statistics. The third is with respect to trafficking in persons and smuggling of migrants as well. What exactly is this issue all about? Let's say for example, humans are trafficked from one place to another. This can be for the sexual exploitation, or it can be forced labor, or slavery or organ removal as well. So it is not only from another country into India, but people can also be forced. So Indian citizens can also be captured. They might be pushed outside the country as well. This is where sexual exploitation, organ trade happens. So what we require is the security forces will have to be really active, and they need to stay vigilant to prevent this particular operation of trafficking in persons as well as smuggling of migrants. So this is in the general context. So what we make sure is that in case we have a better border management, all these issues can be prevented in general. And the organized crime, which is also increasing of late, when there is organized crime, it can give rise to terrorism, it can give rise to crimes in a particular area, it can give rise to smuggling as well, and this can also give rise to money laundering in that particular region. So all in all, if the border management is good, we would be able to stop it. If the border management is not that great, we will be the major sufferers, because there are all these threats emanating from the non-state actors, or it can also be pushed by the state actors from some other country as well. Now let's look at how this can be stopped in general. So generally, whenever there is a border areas, let's say for example India and Pakistan, or it can be India and Bangladesh, or India and Nepal. Primarily, let's focus on issues with respect to India and Pakistan and India and Bangladesh. How do we ensure that there is minimal presence of these people from outside the country? How do we make sure that all these issues does not happen? That is where we construct what is called as the physical walls. We do construct those huge walls so that this can ultimately prevent the migration from one country into another. So when we are speaking about migration, it is the illegal migration. Migration can happen legally as well, where the government has given the permission for a traveler to enter the country. But if there are people who do not have the authority, the stamping from the government, that is where it is called as illegal migration. So what is the first step? So we build physical walls, but the problem with the physical wall is, let's say there is an emergency, or let's say there is an exigency. In that particular case, we would not be able to see what is happening on the other side. If we are building a physical wall along the India and Pakistan border, we would not be able to see what are the soldiers trying to do from the side of Pakistan. So that is a major threat for India. So in order to overcome this issue, the physical walls are not built, but what we have is the barbed wire fence. What are these barbed wire fence? We will have huge iron rods, we will also have wires as well, and these wires will be put up, and this acts as a what is called as the border area between India and Pakistan, or it can be in the form of India and Bangladesh as well. India and Bangladesh border and India and Pakistan border has the presence of these barbed wire fence along the borders. But what is the major issue? We cannot have all the time soldiers in a particular area, but we always have the smugglers who are waiting for an opportunity so that this particular border security force move away from this region. So what do? They cut this particular barbed wire. They also conduct their smuggling activities as well. When such smuggling activities happen, it is a major loss for the country, and this is a threat for the country. Apart from this, let's also envision this particular idea of drones as well. There have been examples in the past. What is these examples? That along the border areas of India and Pakistan, there are state actors and there are non-state actors who are using these drones to export the arms, to push these arms and drugs to the border areas as well. So the physical wall, or in fact we have the barbed vehicle, this is not stopping Pakistan, or in fact in certain areas in Bangladesh as well, to smuggle and also export arms and drugs in that particular area. So the walls are not stopping this particular issue, the barbed wires are not stopping us. Added to the ooze of this is the rugged area. What do we mean by this rugged area? Let's say we have the border security. So along the borders, what we have on the western front is the desert in the region of Rajasthan, or let's take the example of northwestern frontier. We take the example of Kashmir. There are these snow-clad mountains as well. Again, they are rugged areas. We cannot always monitor them. We also have cold and bleak weather as well. Now let's take into picture the eastern side, the Bangladesh front. Again, we have the Brahmaputra and there is rugged terrain as well. Now when we focus on the northeast frontier, again some regions have long mountains as well. So we are not in a position to say that there is one single area where we would be able to build the walls, or we can also have the barbed wires as well. Why? Because the terrain is different, the topography is different, the areas are different, and we have different sorts of barriers and impediments. That is another major reason why border management is getting tough with time. And finally, in spite of India having all these opportunities and capabilities, there was this terrorist attack on the Pathankot Air Force as well, where terrorists entered and what we know was killing of our Indian soldiers. So what we have to make sure is that in case there is a vast area, we have to monitor them constantly, because we have all these concerns, because in spite of the presence of the border security force, in spite of all these barriers that are built along the border security, there is continuation of the devastating activities. In order to overcome this particular issue, what this article propounds is the concept called as the smart walls. So what is the smart walls? This is one of the concept that is currently being used in United States of America. Why? Let's take into the context of it. We have United States of America's President Joe Biden, who has stopped the construction of the much publicized border wall where United States of America and Mexico. But he says we will not have the physical wall along the border areas, but what we will have is a technological upgradation. That technological upgradation is what is called as the smart wall. So we will not have a physical wall, we will not have a barbed wire fence, but instead along those areas where we cannot have all this, we will make use of the technology. So making use of the technology to prevent all these issues surfacing along the border areas is what is called as the smart walls. So what are these smart walls? Basically what we will have is the sensors, we will have is the radars, surveillance technology to detect and track border break-ins in that particular area. So similar one can also be put up on the Indian borders, says this article. Now the next question is, how is this going to be employed? So what we will have is use of satellite technology, what we will have is use of sensors, and we will also have what is called as the thermal imaging. What will the thermal imaging do? This will help in identification. Identification of what? It can be humans, it can be things, or it can also be animals as well. So when there is thermal imaging, we are making sure that there is differentiation of different lives as well. So if there is a problem with respect to humans, the same can also be stopped by employing the technology. So this smart wall technology is about making use of the technology, that which is prevalent, and the advances of technology employed in the border areas is what is called as the smart walls for the Indian borders. Now what we have to focus is on the benefits. Let's assume that we have the smart wall technology. Let's assume United States of America along the border areas, and the same concept is imported into India and it is employed in the border areas. What will be its advantages? The first advantage is that this can be employed in all the rugged areas. For those areas where we do not have the physical presence, where we do not have the security force, or there is no barbed wire fence, in such a scenario we would be able to employ this technology. So the rugged areas are where we would not be generally able to have the human presence. So what we use is the technology to make sure that we are constantly monitoring that area. So this will also be a cost effective process. Why? Whenever there is a construction, it takes a large number of years as well. It can be 2 years, 3 years, so on and so forth. It can be a constant one as well, which will require periodic upgradation as well. But when it comes to the technology, this is cost effective. The amount of money that is required for the walls as well as for the barbed wire fence is comparatively more, but this technology can be cost effective is the first advantage of employing the technology. Then the speed of deployment with respect to technology is comparatively greater. Why? As we initially discussed, border wall could be completed in years, let's say 1, 2, 3 or 4 number of years as well. On the other hand, the smart border technology can be deployed faster when it comes to that particular region. There are also environmental concerns when it comes to the normal scenario. Let's say for example, we are building a wall. Let's say for example, we are building, let's say, a barbed wire as well. So what will happen, let's say birds are moving from one region to another, or let's say for example there are other species who are moving from one region to another. This will be a major impediment for these species. So we are not only harming, disturbing that particular area by constructing something new, but what we are also disturbing is the natural flow of that particular species or that animal. So this is an environmental threat, this is an environmental concern. To overcome this particular issue, a physical barrier is done away with, and what we have is a smart wall which will lessen the damage to the environment. This will also have fewer land seizures in that particular place, and ultimately we would be able to enhance the security establishment in the country. Apart from this, there is also another advantage as well. Let's say for example India is also an aspiring IT country, and at the same time we also are called as a startup hub as well. So if all these technologies are improvised, there are companies, there will be organizations who would be able to provide these services to the government of India. So the startup companies will also grow, their manpower will also grow, the government will be one of the subscriber to their products, and eventually everyone develop, and at the same time the border security is also managed along the border areas. So what is the conclusion that we can draw? We can thus say that the physical barriers are required, but what we also require is the smart walls by use of technology. Therefore, we need to create a technological barrier that is too high for them to climb over, like in the case of drones, or too wide for the ground to cover and too deep for them to burrow under. So a smart border wall provides a nuanced solution to the border control problem, that which is emanating along the borders of India, or in fact in any other country along the border areas. So the experts must explore this very idea to effectively counter the problem of cross-border infiltration, is what we have to understand in reference to this particular article. Now let's look into the next article. This article here is speaking about the infrastructure developmental program, especially with respect to the bus services and the metro rail services when it comes to the urban cities, that which was proposed in the budget 2021. First, let us discuss about the metro projects, then take up the issues with respect to the buses and how we have to overcome the issue with respect to the bus as well as the metro issue, that which can emanate in a particular region. First up, let's take our discussion with respect to the metro rail project. The government of India in its recent budget of 2021 has sanctioned certain amount for the development of metro rail system. They have sanctioned about 1957.05 crores for what? For the Kochi metro rail network phase 2, which will be about 11.5 kilometer at a cost of 1957.05 crores. Now we look at Chennai metro rail network, where the phase 2 project will be upcoming for a distance of about 118.9 kilometers at a cost of 63,246 crores. The same will happen in Bengaluru metro rail network, where there will be a phase 2A and the phase 2B at a distance of about 58.19 kilometer with a cost of about 14,788 crores. This is the sanction amount by the central government, so that metro project takes up in the second phases and down the lane in all these major cities. Apart from this, in case there are tier 2 cities and there are other cities who are connected to the tier 1 cities, they will also be provided with what is called as the Metro Light project and the Metro Neo project. So what are these projects? These are similar to the metro project, but the vast area will not be covered. But this, when deployed, will have the same amount of efficiency, experience, safety as well as the convenience. The only thing is they'll not be deployed for far distances as it was happening in Kochi metro or in Chennai metro or in Bengaluru metro. So the idea is that even in the tier 2 cities we have the metros that are running. Now the important aspect of this metro is the advantages. What are the advantages with this particular implementation? The method of travel allows us to travel major distances much faster. Why? When you look into cities like Delhi, or you look into cities like Mumbai, or you look at cities like Bengaluru Bengaluru, or let's say Chennai or Hyderabad or Kolkata. In all these cities, what we have is the vehicular density in a particular region is too much. It means that every person can afford for a vehicle, which means they will have their Fortuners, they will also have their SUVs, where a single person will be traveling for a longer distance, which means there is large vehicular density, which means traffic will also increase in those areas. And as a result, if you are traveling in all these major cities, if you have to cover a distance of about 10 kilometers, it will eventually take about 1 hour, in fact 1.5 hours as well. If you are traveling via the metro, it will be comparatively faster, where you would be able to reach the destination in nearly less than half an hour. So that becomes the advantage when it comes to the metro rail. And at the same time, this will also boost the space as well. How? When it comes to the metro rails, what we have is one single metro rail which would be able to carry about 500 to 600 people. Let's assume that is, but what would happen in case the person is taking a private vehicle? A large SUV, a maximum it can take up is about 7 people, or in fact 8 people as well. This means they are already consuming a lot of energy. There is fuel that is spent on that particular vehicle, and it also means that it is taking less space on the roads as well. So in order to cut down on the space, and in order to improve the energy efficiency, and in order to take more people in a single source, what we have is the metro rails as the best option. And finally, because there are people who would now opt for the metro rails, this will also improvise the health of the people in general. How? More the vehicles, more will be the pollution. More the pollution, this will impact the ultimately the people in that particular region. Why? Because there is carbon monoxide emissions, and there are other emissions that can happen which can have catastrophic impact on their health. So when we have these metro rails, it will also reduce the impact on the health, and ultimately we are all safe. So these are the advantages when it comes to the operation of metro. As of now, because of COVID-19 issue, people might not be opting for the metro rail. That is because large number of people travel in metro rail. But eventually, when this particular COVID-19 issue is settled, we will have more number of people who will return to the green mass mobility, is what we have to understand in reference to metro. Now we have to look into picture with respect to the buses as well. In order to support the public transport, a new scheme will be launched, where this will have a cost of about 18,000 crores according to the government of India. What will it be? It will be a PPP model, public private partnership, which will enable private sector players to finance, acquire, operate and maintain over 20,000 buses. It also means this is also an important program that which has been taken by the government of India. Why? When we look into India's ratio of buses to population, it is just 1.2 per thousand people, compared to 8 buses in Thailand, about 6.5 in South Africa. So what is the number of buses for 1,000 people? It is comparatively low when it comes to India's statistics. In order to overcome this issue, that is why the government has entered into a public private partnership, so that even private players are into this particular area, so that we are able to reduce this data and statistics, where we have more number of buses. Eventually, as of now, we have less number of buses, says this article. But there are some implementational problems when it comes to this particular area. What are these problems? As of now, most of the control when it comes to the metropolitan area is still under the control of the state governments. Ideally, this particular power will have to go to the local governments. It is the municipalities which has to cover, but most of the state governments still hold the power, still wield the power. So there is friction between the state governments and the municipalities. As a result, they are not able to provide effective, efficient transport system in a region. We also have the problem with respect to common mobility cards as well. What are these common mobility cards? Let's say, for example, I'm traveling by the railway, local railways, or let's say I'm traveling by metro, or let's say I'm traveling by buses. All these different modes of operation have different cards. They also have different ticketing system as well. What we do not have is one single card which can be used in all these three modes of transport. In fact, there have been number of tests that are conducted, pilot projects have also been taken up as well, but the problem is it is still not successful and it is not being implemented. So the common mobility cards in the near future will have to take the precedence, says this article. Now, when people are traveling by metro, They might travel long distances as well. They might have all these advantages as we just discussed, but the problem is they are expensive in nature. How? Let's say for example, if I have to travel from a source to the destination, it means that the cost would be about 50 or 60 rupees. But if I'm taking my two-wheeler and if I'm traveling from the same distance, it is comparatively less. So why would I take up the option of metro if the cost is comparatively less when it comes to the two-wheelers? So the common person who is traveling will not look at the time factor, but instead he will look at the expense factor. Since it is expensive when it comes to the metro, he will obviously choose his two-wheeler. That is the third option. That is the third concern with respect to this issue. And fourth is with respect to the census towns as well. What is happening? Let's say for example, we have what is called as the Delhi. Delhi is one of the major cities. It is also the capital of India, and at the same time, let's say the financial capital Mumbai, or let's say the IT capital Bengaluru. There are regions which are also built along the borders of this particular area. So what exactly happens? Other regions along this particular city also develops. But the problem that is present is that there are more number of buses, rail networks that are provided to these major cities within their particular area, but outside their area it is not provided. So what we have is more cities that are being developed along the periphery, along the border, but they do not have commensurate increase of the public transport system. So this will also have to be increased, says this article. So going forward, the center will have to work out with the state governments, integrate all areas of transport and envision that all these aspects are taken into picture. So it is the responsibility of the central government to discuss the same with the state governments. The state governments will have to give enough power to the local governments, and all of them will have to work not on the basis of their separate domain but as an integrated domain, so that this can be a good and beneficial program for the people of the country and for that region. It is this that we have to understand in reference to this article. Now let's look into the next article. This article says towards sustainable growth. When you look into this article and read through this article, one of the important quotes that will immediately surface to your thought process is that there is everything for the man's need, but not for the man's greed. Why? Because the COVID-19 issue has happened because of the man's greed as well as because of the animal human conflict. What are we speaking about? We are speaking about what is called as respecting the nature. What are we speaking about? We are speaking about respecting the biodiversity. Unfortunately, man is egocentric. We have the humankind, which is the greatest enemy of the nature. What does he do? He enters into those areas called as forests, which are homes to different and millions of species, and he enters this area, barges into this area, and he constructs roads, mines in this particular region, and eventually when animals come out, he says this is animal human conflict. So we enter into their homes, they enter into our homes, and we eventually kill them as well. Because of this particular issue, in order to teach a lesson to the man, the nature has responded with COVID-19. So this article currently goes on to say that what we require is a synergy and understanding with the nature. If there is no understanding and if man becomes greedy over a period of time, enters into those area which is not his natural home but a home to other species, they will come over, there'll be a spillover effect, and that is what will cause what is called as COVID-19, one such example, or there can be other examples of climate change, so on and so forth. So in order to understand this, the article brings into picture what are some of the important statistics with respect to the economic devastation caused by COVID-19. The pandemic has resulted in huge economic losses. Globally, the GDP is expected to contract 2.4% to 8% in 2020. The World Economic Forum estimates that the global cost of dealing with the pandemic could be from $8.1 trillion to $15.8 trillion. Preventing such pandemics will cost only a fraction of this amount, estimated at 22.2 billion to 30.7 billion a year, and this is without factoring the human suffering. So this article, with the help of these statistics, goes on to say that decline in the wildlife population, conversion rate of natural ecosystems for the welfare of the human beings will ultimately create catastrophes including pandemics and climate change, and India particularly will also be vulnerable, says this article. We have one of the important reports, that which is given by the World Economic Forum. According to this World Economic Forum global risk report, kindly remember this can be very important from your preliminary examination. The World Economic Forum releases a report called as the Global Risk Report. According to this particular report, for the year 2021, the risks continue to threaten the global economy. What does it go on to say? The top 5 risks are extreme weather, climate action failure, human environmental damage, infectious diseases, and biodiversity loss. It further goes on to say, in terms of impact, infectious diseases top the list, followed by climate action failure. With all these lessons, what we have to understand is that destruction of the environment will lead to destruction of the humankind. Destruction of the biodiversity will also mean destruction of the humankind. Destruction of the particular area because of our greed, because of our population, will also mean that it will cause climate change and its factors. So all that means we have to live in synergy with the nature. If we are not doing so, it will ultimately harm the human beings. In order to overcome all these issues, the article here has given us some recommendations. What are these recommendations? Whenever the government is coming up with a policy program, or the government is intending to bring growth at the cost of environment, it should not do so, but instead it should factor the biodiversity and ecosystems, which means in case we are entering a forest area, which is one of the important carbon sinks, which is one of the area which is hosting large number of species, if we are disturbing the peace in that particular area, disturbing the biodiversity, it will harm the human beings eventually down the line. So the policy, if it is being crafted, will have to look into these aspects of respecting the biodiversity and the ecosystem. This will also mean that a fuel based economy will not only have to be so, but what we require is a sustainable, equitable, inclusive, and just developmental models. We also require a national accounting, that which is different from the GDP numbers. As of now, we compare countries and their growth and their development on the basis of the GDP. So what we require is an alternative model. One such example that we can take is in reference to Bhutan. So the question for you guys is, what is the system that which is present in Bhutan? How do they calculate their numbers? Is it similar to that of the GDP? So kindly look into this assignment, answer all these questions on the comment section. Apart from this, whenever the government is coming up with a budget should also reduce all those areas where investments are going to haunt the forest areas. So if the budget is making and sanctioning money for such investments which is going to be a devastation 20 or 30 years down the lane, the budget money should not be sanctioned for such economic activities. Finally, the government has also taken what is called as the National Mission on Biodiversity and Human Well-being. This is one of the important programs that which has been approved by the Prime Minister's Science and Technology Innovation Advisory Council. So what are the overall objectives? The overall objectives is to restore and enhance the biodiversity, protect the biodiversity, respect the species diversity, and if we are respecting the biodiversity and the forest and the ecosystem, this will help the human beings, and what we will have is the sustainable developmental model. So going forward, India, in case it has to play a major role in the global leadership, we have to make sure that it goes in line with the sustainable developmental model. So it is not the development at the cost of the environment, at the cost of the biodiversity, at the cost of the forest, but this sustainable development will have to be inclusive, taking all these aspects into picture. So what we require is an inclusive development, inclusive not in terms of human beings, not in terms of countries, but what we require is an inclusive model taking the biodiversity, different species, and the forest into picture, because all these are aspects of the nature. Man alone cannot be egocentric. If he goes into the mode of egocentrism, that is where nature will show its fury in the form of COVID or in the form of major catastrophe, says this article. It is this that we have to understand in reference to this article. In line with this article, let's look into the next article. This article here is speaking about fishing catch and the threats that are being posed to the fishing catch. First important question from your preliminary examination point of view. The IUCN status of the fishing cat is vulnerable on the IUCN red list. But if the numbers continue to deplete because of the conflict between human beings and fishing cat, this may also fall into the zone of endangered, says this article. As of now, it is in the vulnerable category, but if the numbers go on dropping because of the threat to this particular species, it may fall under the bracket of endangered. Fishing cats as of now are present along the Eastern Ghats. They thrive in estuarine floodplains, tidal mangrove forests, and also inland freshwater habitats as well. Where are they specifically found? Apart from Sundarbans in West Bengal and Bangladesh, fishing cats inhabit the Chilka Lagoon and surrounding wetlands in Odisha, Koringa and Krishna mangroves in Andhra Pradesh. So these are the distributing areas of the fishing cat. But what is the major concern? The article here goes about speaking the various threats with respect to the fishing catch. What are these threats? One is the habitat loss. Wherever these species are present, there is a massive loss with respect to their habitat. There is wetland degradation, conversion of the aquaculture and other commercial projects. So what we are disturbing is the natural region of this particular cat. So when there is habitat loss, they have no other areas to live. They enter into the areas of the human habitats, and eventually what we will have is the human animal conflict, and eventually the humans will kill this particular species. So what we have is the conflict with humans in certain areas, resulting in targeted hunting and retaliatory killings as well. Apart from this, the sand mining along the river banks, agricultural intensification resulting in loss of the riverine buffer, and major shifts that have taken place with respect to the land management, agricultural intensification along all these areas have become the major threats with respect to the fishing catch. In order to overcome this issue, we have to take about certain conservation efforts. What are these conservation efforts? Basically, people will have to be given an awareness. We have to say that we have to live with the nature, we have to live with this particular species, so we have to promote awareness among all the people near the fishing cat habitats. So we have to give them an awareness on one side, and we also have to ask them to monitor as to why there has been a drop with respect to the population of the fishing cat. It is this that we have to understand in reference to this article. Now let's look into the next article. This article says weighing in on Biden presidency. This article has been explained on this very platform in number of times. We have discussed that Joe Biden foreign policy will have number of problems as well. Why? Because China is increasing its fold around the world. We also have issues with Russia when it comes to United States of America. European Union is not in good terms with United States of America. Why? Because earlier they were seen as equal terms, but now what United States of America has done with its one America policy, America first policy, protectionism, is it has also insulted European countries as well. So what this means is that foreign policy approach of United States of America with Joe Biden as the president will have number of issues. How he'll be able to take it on, what would be his policy approach, is what we have to wait and watch. So we have discussed this article couple of times, so we will not take this article. You can just skim through this article. Now let's look into the mains practice questions. Effective border management is a must for a nation's security. Discuss how technology can be overhauled to increase efficiency at the border. Next question. Policymakers should factor biodiversity and ecosystems into their economic decision making. Elaborate. Please write all your answers on the comment section. Peer review. Come up with a positive feedback to the answers. So this is it for today. Thank you for watching. All the best.